Hi, I'm Tim Zacharias with Cougar USA and your host of Building Value. Today, my guest is Sean Kelly, CEO of Amperon. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks a lot for having me. Good
Awesome.
to catch up.
Yes, sir. Well, today we're going to be talking about the energy market in Texas and how with a combination of smart meters and energy professionals like Sean, that you can take control of the electricity at your building. On Building Value, we go behind the scenes of building operations to showcase the people and products that make buildings work and the value they bring to the community. So obviously, both Aggies went to A&M. What did you do after school?
Yeah, so was kind of a cool A&M story. Went around and was just talking to people and saying, hey, I was a finance major. And so with that, just went around and said, hey, what are my options here? So talk to a hedge fund, talk to investment bankers, all of that. Sat down with a guy in Dallas, and he was drawing. His name's Forrest Lane. He was a student body president, and he was drawing on napkins like the electric grid and everything. And he's told me about energy trading. And so I was the weird kid that everybody wanted to be like a policeman or a firefighter. I wanted to be a stockbroker. Okay. And so I was like, energy trader's like really close to stockbroker, and stockbroker's like kind of obsolete, and like completely obsolete now, but like pretty much obsolete in like '05. And so he told me about power trading. He wound up hiring me. And so went to Tenaska 2 weeks after I graduated. Lived in Dallas. The office is in Arlington. So it was a great jump into this crazy industry that is now cool for the first time. Everyone cares about electricity. Everyone's talking about the grid. Unfortunately, for bad reasons from the last few weeks. But it was a great start to a career, and been doing the exact same thing every day for, I guess, different things every day, but that's the exact same industry for the last 16 years now. We're getting old. Yeah,
and it's a wild industry that definitely, I think, until recently flies under the radar. I mean, my brother-in-law's been energy trader / kind of a dispatcher, I guess, for the assets themselves.
Yep.
And, so I know enough to be dangerous about the industry through him, and it's fascinating to, the whole idea of trading power, moving power between different areas or different grids. I mean, it's just kind of mind-blowing when you start to think about it, that's what's happening behind the scenes, so that you can kind of walk in and, flip the light switch, things like that.
Yeah, I did the grid operations for probably about 4 years, and it was awesome. It was amazing to see, and got bored one night, and I was talking on the phone to Cargill. You work either 5:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. It was a blast when you're like in your early mid-20s. And so Cargill and I were bored. We got to be best friends because I was there by myself and had to stay up that late. So it was either binge watching 24 on DVD.
That's addictive.
And so, or talking to Cargill, and we got bored, and we decided to move power from New Mexico to Florida. And so I was like, send it to me. It's like, meet you in Louisiana? Like, meet you in Louisiana. And so went there, and like I picked it up in Entergy, and like I wheeled it down the rest of the way. But yeah, just the way the grid works, and I mean, it's not the same megawatt that went in that comes out on the other end, but it's wild to see how that works in the physical. But there's also, it unfortunately hasn't changed that much, and so that's a lot of what we're doing now at Amperon is we're bringing the like data scientists who should be working at a Google or a Facebook or something, and we're bringing them to this electricity industry, which has remained essentially unchanged since Enron kind of created it back in the 90s.
Yeah, it's really wild, and unfortunately to see that it's one of the later industries to have this technology. You look at like your house and you're like, wow, I have this, connected thermostat, and I can do all this stuff from my iPhone. But when you look at the larger infrastructure, it's lagging behind, right?
It's lagging way behind, and you can literally. It's, in my opinion, and obviously a little biased, I think it's the most important commodity we have. I mean, electricity is connected to everything. There's other substitutes for whether it be like an oil or a natural gas or whatever, but like if you turn the lights on, it's electricity. Nobody's displacing that. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Nope.
And it's crazy that it's been completely forgotten and, in all honesty, neglected.
Yep. So can you give me a little bit of background on Amperon and how you started the company and what y'all do?
So went to a conference, and it was called New York Energy Week, and so I was there and I was like, taken New York Energy by storm. And so I realized that the data was everything. I had to sit down in early 2017 with my dad, who's very good on like from the computer data, et cetera, standpoint, with a good friend of mine, Evan Karen, and we all sat down. We just kind of talked about data, and we talked about like how can we use this data. I had all this really cool building data. How do we use this better? And so that's kind of what made me want to go start something else. So we're at this conference, and I meet Abe. And so Abe Stanway is my co-founder and our CTO, and just realized that, wow, he's got an impressive skill set that's just not in Houston. Mm-hmm. Not that Houston doesn't have smart people, but in Houston, and if you're a really smart person, if you're coming out of A&M, Texas, Rice, whatever, and you're just as good as it gets, you go get a golden handcuff from a insert huge oil company here. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you get in a company with 10,000 people, they're going to say, hey, you're a square peg. I need you to fit this square hole. I'm going to pay you handsomely for it.
Sure.
This is great. Whereas with Abe, he had been a bunch of different places. He just loved data. So I asked him, why are you here? And he goes, well, the 2 fastest growing jobs in the United States are solar installer and wind technician. If those are the 2 fastest growing jobs, there's going to be a lot of cool data. Interesting. He's like, I care about climate. I care about the grid. I care about the healthiness, our future. I was like, that's a pretty good answer. And he's like, why are you here? I was like, A, I don't know how to do anything else. And B, I think that I want to find someone data-driven who can kind of build this idea that's in my head. And so we went and we just started talking and realized that we went and did all these customer interviews, which anyone starting a company, the one piece of advice I'd absolutely give, go ask your customer. You're not going to buy anything from yourself. Sure. You have to go and figure out what the masses need. And so we went and talked to dozens and dozens of people, and I still subconsciously interview everyone and ask them how can I help you? And so what do you hate about your job? What's the worst part? What's the biggest bottleneck that you have?
Yeah.
And then I think about if there's a way that we could fix it. And then next I think, is it a repeatable process? And so everything that we do has to be a repeatable process. So we decided that the deregulated energy supplier, which are obviously, unfortunately, highlighted right now,
yes,
that they had a lot of problems. They didn't understand trading. They didn't understand risk. They were marketing companies. Their job is to go get clients. Gritty is a really cool concept, but they're getting in trouble right now for false practices in terms of how they marketed to people.
Yep.
They're just marketing companies. And so I realized that there was a hole. And so 8 to 12% of top line revenue of these companies is lost by inaccurate hedging.
Wow.
And so 8 to 12, these companies make.
That's massive.
Yeah. We've got a medium-sized customer that's, I think he's 46,000 meters right now. So good penetration. But guess what? He does over $100 million in top line revenue. True. So he's just disappears 8 to 12%. So we have been able to take that down to 3 to 4%. And the great thing is we basically we've made the jump. There's no way, in our opinion, without Perfect Weather, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. If you had that, there's no way without Perfect Weather to actually get that last 3%. So there's no one who can come in, and they might beat us by some fractions of percent, which is fine. That's great. Competition's good. It makes you work harder. But the thing that we've basically taken the jump. So we took the 8 to 12 that a lot of our competition was doing, and we're at 3 to 4. It's over. The only way we get better is by weather, or in places like New York State, we'll get better data. So. But that's what Amperon does. We go in and help the supplier just with this hedging, with this just understanding procurement, and then also just give them a lot of analytics. And so we're able to, what we're doing right now, just because of what's going on, is we're building these reports for them. And these reports, they're happy to pay us for, and these reports just go through and analyze every single 15 minutes of every single meter they have during this outage to make sure that the usage is correct, that if it was out, it's showing 0 instead of null, which was an issue at the beginning. And so we're just going through and just tearing apart data for them. But we're able to do it for quite a few retailers that we have across Texas.
So when you're talking about their hedging their procurement, are you talking about literally the how they're buying the power and supplying it to the end user, and the data that you're getting is from the smart meter at the individual buildings or residences,
Yeah.
et cetera, right? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So we tell them how much they need to be hedged. So there's the first product is a short-term model, and so short-term model goes out 15 days. That's how long the Euro and the GFS run, the two weather models.
Right.
And then we have an ensemble of 5 weather models, and then it updates every single hour because the HRRR runs every single hour. And so every hour we tell you what you need to buy this hour, next hour, going out 15 days. So we would sell to like someone doing grid operations, like your brother-in-law, and show them exactly what's going to happen to their book. We also have a long-term hedging. So we go out. You obviously don't know the weather 5 years out. But what the problem that people make is they don't account for anomalies. So we don't weather normalize. People are, oh, well, February, every day in February is alike. We definitely learned that is not the case.
Yeah.
So you need to have these days that are huge outliers.
Sure.
And this was an outlier of our outliers. But nonetheless, it was still an outlier. You need to know what your worst day is and be hedged accordingly to whatever your risk standards are and whatever your credit facility says that you need to be. So if you want to be 90% hedged, that's great. If you want to be less hedged off peak because people use less and the wind's blowing really hard, okay, great, that's fine. But we want you to know we're not going to tell you what percent to be hedged by. That's between you, basically your board executive team, and then your credit facility. So the Shells, the BPs, the NRGs, et cetera, out there. And so, but we want you to know what
the risk is.
If you don't, you can't. If you don't know the number, you don't know what 90% of it is. So we want you to know the number, and then you can figure out what to do from there. So that's really what the product does. Those are the two things, the two main things. We also have a grid scale forecast that traders look at, and then also offer something that we gave away for free to 900 something email addresses is for the week of, or I guess the week and a half of all this is we have meteorologists as a service. So Dr. Mark Shipham is great. Hired him at Eon on a strong recommendation from some friends of mine who worked with him at Morgan Stanley. He was awesome. We got along great. And so back in 2018, he came and joined Amperon. So he's great to have on staff just because obviously load forecasting is weather.
Very kind of weather.
And he's good when you're planning vacations as well. So you can be like, are we good 2 weeks out? How's this? Oh, I wouldn't go to Florida. Okay, thanks.
That's cool.
But yeah, so it's that's what we've built though.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I think that relationship between power and the energy consumption and the weather is really interesting. And I was talking with Gavin Dillingham from HARC. He does the clean energy research there, and I've been learning about this water and energy nexus. Basically, how closely water and energy are tied together.
Oh yeah.
Have to have water to do power generation. You need power generation to move and use water. And so just how closely those tied. And then you add in climate as well.
Oh yeah.
And it's just crazy how they're all so closely tied together. To your point before about how they're not going anywhere. I mean, feel the same way obviously about water. And so, so it's
agreed.
It's wild to see kind of what's happening at the macro level with all the grid and the kind of power generation and the monitoring and the technology that you're using. Mm-hmm. So what does that impact at the micro level, like the smaller level for the building owners? Or do they? How you mentioned New York has a lot better data than Texas. Say
worse data.
Oh, New York has worse data than Texas. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're nice. So Texas is ahead of New York.
Oh, we're the best by far.
There we go. Well, of course, Texas.
In everything. But yeah.
So what is it that's giving us the good data here in Texas?
Yeah. So smart meters is what's giving us the good data. So in I guess in 2007, I think part of the Obama stimulus package, they said, hey, let's do smart meters.
Yep.
And so smart meters have been out there. It's really cool to see because when we started the company in 2017, there were 70 million smart meters in the U.S. And now there's 108 million. So that's, I mean, the company's only 3.5 years old. We've seen a huge uptick in this. So with these smart meters, it's awesome because you don't have the guy running around your backyard and dog chasing, et cetera, all the stuff we had as a kid.
Yep.
The meter maid's here. Oh man, get Fido out of here.
Yeah.
And then also you get 15-minute data. So from ERCOT, the way we work is we tie directly into ERCOT, and we get 15-minute data on a 3-day lag. which is awesome.
Okay.
So New York, you get normally summary data. So summary is for the entire month. Summary is the most important because it's how you get billed, right? Most important thing, people got to pay their bills.
Sure.
And so our clients, they have to have summary, but they would love to have interval. And all the stuff we're talking about from a grid, from an energy transition, is impossible without smart meters. It's impossible without interval data. I have no idea, like, if I just see your summary data, you could have bought a Tesla or started a grow house. I have no idea.
Right.
Like, it could be either one. But if I get to see your usage every 15 minutes, it's not really from a privacy issue. I'm not in there, like, creeping on trying to figure out when you're going on vacation. But what we're looking at is, like, we need to know, like, you should have a lower bill if you put solar on your roof. I will know if you have put solar on your roof. If you buy an EV, I need to tell you, Tim, I want you to charge it this time.
Sure.
I'm going to pay you to charge it this time. If you come home at 4 p.m. and you plug it in when the grid needs it the most, this is really not helpful. So I need to know you have it, and I need you to go, and I need to incentivize you.
Yep.
So that's another thing. And then batteries. Batteries are very out of the money right now, and so if they're going to be in the money and more cost effective, then again, you need to know how to use them. You need to know who has them. You need to incentivize that person to use it correctly. They make more sense with places with higher prices, such as like a California,
Sure.
or if you have a solar roof or something like that. But in Texas, the thing that we don't understand is that we have a very, very low energy cost here.
Very low.
And so we're kind of spoiled, and that's why it just really, I think the biggest underlying theme, everyone obviously is pointing fingers, but the biggest underlying theme is weatherization. We can pay for this. If everyone just chips in a little bit, what happened here, it wasn't that cold in the scheme of things. This happens in the north all the time.
Right.
I lived in Chicago for the polar vortex. It was not that cold. And so wife's pregnant. We went on like a 3-mile walk every day just because it was bright, sunny, etc. And it was cold. It was absolutely cold. Cold for Texas, but it wasn't that cold. It's not like we've never seen these temperatures in the history of the world. We have, there's a massive wind farms that I've seen. Eon owns some, and we got to go up in them in Indiana. Like, Indiana gets this cold. Michigan gets this cold. Minnesota gets this cold. Like, the Dakotas, all of this. Like, the winterization is there. Gas, goodness gracious. The Northeast has natural gas everywhere. The pipes, like, they have to work. They would have this issue that we had, I don't know.
Every day.
Yeah, like, for 4 months.
Yeah.
So, that's the big thing, is our energy cost is just so inexpensive here. But the data is everything, and so having the data and having this meter data is great, and that's where you can actually also go in and help the building owners. So that's what I was doing at my last company, is we were going in, and with this data, we would say, here's what you need to do. And so part of the issue here, too, is the building owners, if they go do this, sometimes it's cost up front. There's a lot of ways. Money's cheap or free right now. So with this, now's the time. If you haven't put an LED, put an LED. If you've considered solar, there's a bunch of like great companies out there that put solar roofs on. You're going to get a payback. Look at the long term of your business.
Sure.
Sometimes it sucks to do the capital expenditure, and it's hard to make money. You're trying to make money, but in the long run, you're going to save so much money by doing this, and you help the grid out. So the next time this happens, that you're sitting here like we're in a massive facility right now, and so by having that, you're going to be, instead of here, you're going to be 20%, or sometimes even 40% lower. So when the grid is relying on you, you can move a lot more. You can move the needle a lot more being in a big facility like this as opposed to your house.
Right.
There's only so much you can do at your house, and it's kind of expensive for how much you move the needle. But from a building standpoint, this is where I think a lot of damage can be done. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do, and it's going to make your life easier. It's going to save you money. And it's going to make your product better. It's going to make your brand better. And it's going to help the environment, and it's going to help the grid.
Yep.
So all across the board, this, I hope, is a wake up to the building owners. And there's a ton of amazing building owners out there. who do all this stuff, who are ahead of the curve, who have been early adopters, already on their second go-around at LED, which lasts 10 years anyways. So, I mean, there's a ton of great early adopters, but those who were kind of hesitant about it, I highly recommend them to go do this, because this is going to help us, like, prevent the next blackout. Because this can happen during the summer, too. I mean, there's so many people moving to Texas right now. I mean, you got Tesla showing up. You got, like, a big steel mill showing up. I mean, Oracle showed up. Which hating the Warriors makes me so happy that Oracle Arena is now not where they are based. And so you see all of this, and it's crazy. But the other thing that people are overlooking, so I just bought a new house, and I asked the builder, I want the 240 volt plug in because I don't have an EV right now, but A, I desperately want one, and then B, I feel like this is going to be the equivalent of selling the house with, like, a gas station in it. And so I see this is where it's headed. I mean, Volvo came out with a big announcement that in 2030, they're all electric. I saw it's either like a Rolls Royce or a Bentley, like a $490,000 EV. I was like, okay, a little aggressive, but pretty cool. And so the thing that people aren't accounting for is, like, we were tight on energy now. Everyone's moving here. Wife and I play a game called Count the California License Plates. And then the other thing too, these EVs are going to just literally, like, half again the demand on the grid. And so, like, the building owners are what we need. And the other thing too is, I mean, demand response is great. A lot of people are in demand response programs. This is one of the things utilities do the best at, but it basically, you're providing insurance to the grid. So I say, hey, can you back down? Not a lot. I need you to back down like 0.1 megawatts. I can do that. Okay, great. I'll pay you for it.
Sure.
Probably not even going to ask you to do it. You're my insurance provider. And so from that, demand response is great. There's a bunch of really cool companies out there. A good friend of mine, Andrew Barth, has a company called CSD Advisors that's here in Houston, and they're phenomenal at it. And so you go in, and he takes care of everything. He takes care of it. You won't even know they're there. You don't have to do anything. If you're a brewery, they're not going to ruin your beer. Like,
right.
If you're like, they're not going to materially harm your company. You still have some electricity. You're not just flipping the breaker. But that's the other thing too, just for, I mean, in a big business park like we're in right now, if everyone's on demand response, which probably a lot of people are, then it makes it so much easier for the grid. And all this ties back to the smart meters. This is so much harder to do in New York on a 90-day lag because we have complete garbage data there.
Sure.
And so read a tariff that they're like, yeah, we are looking for a smart meter system in 2025 because we'll be done with the rollout in 2024. Cool. Ooh. A, why can't we do that a little earlier because you're starting the installation now? But B, goodness gracious, like that's a minute. So
yeah, that's an eternity.
Texas is done.
In the tech world.
Yeah.
And everything changes so fast. So it seems to be this theme of, and I know there's a lot of talk about what happened during the polar vortex and what went wrong. And obviously, I mean, I think, things went wrong in multiple layers, but this idea of resiliency, weatherization of the power stations, and then even what you're talking about, kind of, being able to either shift that load to on-site or even reduce the load is going to be what will kind of help the grid sustain for the longer term and allow for that growth, allow for the electric vehicles. And, the LED lighting, like you're talking about, that's a great upgrade for sure. And I think I would say, like, lighting and like chillers, be the first, the two big ones everybody goes to.
Kind of
right?
the layups, yeah.
Right. But there's a lot of other opportunities to reduce the energy consumption in a building beyond those two that are massive impacts to what you're saying. And I think one of those things that's going to be, like you said with your house, hey, I want to have a charging station in my house. Well, buildings, you're going to want to offer the same thing for their tenants and things like that.
Absolutely.
But if you're not able to, you can't just easily add capacity to your building, right, to be able to do that. So if you're able to reduce your consumption in other areas, put in more energy efficient equipment, all these other things, now you might have the room to be able to add those charging stations, offer that to your tenants, things
Absolutely.
like that. So it's very interesting to see that kind of potential shift from, that electricity is just something that shows up to something that you're maybe taking a more active role in managing in your building.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, even that, I mean, the on-site gen is great too. And that helps your demand response massively, because then not only can you back down, you can actually push back and say, hey, like, I'm helping, I'm here to help. And so the on-site gen, there's a company that I'm a big fan of called Enchanted Rock.
Yep.
And Enchanted Rock has HEB. And so this guy, Sean Andrews, put a hilarious thing on LinkedIn, like, as we were all like freezing our butt off. And during this, he's like, just rolled up to HEB just to hear the Enchanted Rock like rumbling in the background. I was like, that's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see they go out, and I mean, HEB obviously has a ton to lose, right?
Yep.
I mean, think about the refrigeration and the freezer. I mean, goodness gracious, that's millions of dollars that could be lost. So I mean,
Well, not to mention they're providing a very essential service.
absolutely
Right?
essential service. And so, so yeah, I mean, the on-site gen is something that it's the next step, and it's definitely like, it's not cheap. But the thing is a lot of people now, because there's so much money, I mean, private equity is flowing into this, just coming hard into electricity and just trying to be like, where can I put $100 million? And so what a lot of these companies now are able to offer is like literally putting it on your site for free. And so if you go out there, then I mean, that's a great opportunity. And they're obviously going to be like making the money on the demand response, et cetera. But it's one of those things like, I would absolutely do that.
Yeah.
I will say the only thing is, as this is becoming a hot sector, just be careful who you work with. That was the biggest thing that I had a problem with in New York. Is in New York, New Jersey, et cetera, it's expensive to live, and so I would go around and people was like, why does someone like not go with Bridge Power? And I said, there's one reason. There's one reason only. They've been taken advantage of before. And so because of that, they just stayed with Con Edison. They're like, no, fooled me once. Like, fooled me once, shame on me. And so that was literally like the biggest issue that we came across, is that there were bad actors out there. So as this is becoming a hot sector, definitely make sure who you're working with. But there's so many great reputable companies that are out there. And I mean, and there's also people you can ask, and
Sure.
there's people who are happy to help. And I mean, yeah, shoot me a note on LinkedIn. I'll tell you who I like. And then, yeah, go talk to a few of them and see what the offering is. And the other thing too is the cheapest offering is not always the best option. And so you got to pay for quality. If you want to buy a 1970s Pinto, by all means, it may get you where you need to go for a while, but the Mercedes is more expensive for a reason.
Yep.
And so that's the other thing too, is just, I mean, again, we're all trying to make money, but the cost thing is just, it's a huge issue, and that is not the correct answer. The correct answer is making its value.
Sure. And luckily, like you said, there's multiple financial vehicles available to make these sort of infrastructure upgrades or resiliency upgrades. If we're talking at the building level, especially in the commercial market.
Oh, yeah.
PACE being a great example of that. The property assessed clean energy, where basically you can go and get funding over the life of the equipment upgrade.
That's awesome.
And then the way that it's paid is through the property tax vehicle. So if your tenants are in a triple net lease,
Yep.
you can pass that on. So as a building owner or building operator, essentially you can upgrade the building for free.
Yeah.
And the idea is that the reduction in water and energy consumption bills, would be offset, or would offset the payment.
Yeah.
So everybody wins, right? Lower utilities, better efficient equipment, lower costs to the tenants, and not having that massive upfront capital expense. So, I think that's something that's been around in Texas for a while. That was a program that actually started in California.
Okay.
Another thing moved from California to Texas.
With everybody else.
Yeah. But, it's a great program. I would say the adoption has not been as fast as I expected. But it's a great program that's out there to be able to, any sort of project that's going to reduce energy and water consumption on site, meaning from the utilities.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you're doing on-site generation, if you're putting in more energy efficient equipment, doing any sort of rainwater harvesting or recollection, anything like that, it's going to qualify for that. And
That's awesome.
Be able to get over that hump of the financial burden. But again, I think that is definitely probably one of the things that is going to be more in the conversation for the building owners, is how do I take more control over the operation or the energy at my facility.
Yeah, no, I mean, it absolutely is. And that's the thing too, is that again, with the consultants, they get a bad rap, and there's some people that put like huge fees because you don't know where you're supposed to be paying 4 cents or 5 cents. The difference between 4 and 5 cents can be hundreds of thousands of dollars for people. And so you can definitely do that. I mean, you can ask them what their fee is. You're going to figure out if you have someone reputable. Texas did something great 2 years ago, and they actually make all the consultants, brokers, et cetera, register with the state now. So there's a little bit of accountability. We're a part of an organization called TIPA, the Energy Professionals Association. TIPA is phenomenal. Like, can't say enough great things about. Shana McGriff runs it, Aggie. And so I think she's 06 actually. And she runs it, and it's a great organization, and they flush out a lot of the bad actors. And so if you're a TIPA member, you're held to a higher standard, and you can go on the website and you can figure out exactly who is a qualified broker through TIPA. And then with that, because again, this isn't what you're good at. This is not what you, the building owner, are supposed to know how to do. It's really hard. I learn new stuff. Just learned about the PACE program. I've been doing this for 16 years. Like, there's new stuff every day. And so outsourcing this is not an issue. Yeah. Go do that. I mean, you can say, hey, what's my fee here? Like, how am I doing? How do you get paid? I mean, I always ask that. Whenever I talk to companies, I do a lot of stuff with like A&M and just with other startups and stuff. And I'll say, how do you make money? And so it's okay to ask people that. I ask that to literally everybody, because if I don't understand how you make money, I don't understand the business. And if I don't understand how you make money, you're making money somehow. So it's probably some way that like I should probably be privy to.
Sure.
And so yeah, as a building owner, just don't be afraid to go. And TIPA is literally the best. You can literally go on their website and figure out exactly who is a broker that they are like, you're good, because there's a checks and balances. There's an accountability there. And that's the one organization, and we're a member of multiple organizations, but that's the one that I can't say enough good things. Found my head of product there. Elliot Shorn met at a whiskey tasting in New York hosted by TIPA, and so can't have a bad time doing that. Yeah. And so he's been working for me for a year and a half. So I mean, just by our like small amount of dues, I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just our company has, anyways, in terms of just having that brand and having that network as well of all people who are all headed toward the same direction, but also all agree to be held to a higher standard. Sure. So it's easy for building owners to just go in there and figure out who to talk to, or call three and like see what's going on.
So what would be the first, if they're walking into a new building, new acquisition, whatever it is, first thing you'd want to do, make sure that building has a smart meter? I mean, is that really the kind of, you can't really, is that one of those things that you need to start there, or is it just say, hey, let me get one of these professionals involved and take a look at my whole energy picture?
Yeah, have someone take a look at the whole energy picture. The smart meter is installed by the utility. Okay. And so CenterPoint is responsible for all of this. Encore up north, responsible for everything. And so that is, you can, with a good consultant or with a good supplier, they'll actually go in and switch you to a smart meter if it's necessary. So one of the things is obviously large commercial and industrial is the first thing that the grid cared about as a whole, as it should. And so what they put in is they put in these IDR meters. And so IDR meters collect every 15-minute interval, but they have to be read once every 30 days. Okay. So they go in and they get like a lump sum, as opposed to like our houses have just like a nice steady stream. And so they have these IDR meters. We've got clients now. There's a cool supplier that we have who does a lot of oil and gas work, and they're going out and they're actively like getting Encore and AEP to flip these meters over so that they now can have a running stream. Because for us, we just like every 30 days, it's like, blah, here's your data.
Dump of data, yeah.
Which is great. I now know exactly everything I need to know, but I just don't know it on a streaming basis. And so you're going to have an IDR meter, or you're going to have a smart meter in Texas. If you're in the East, or it's a little bit different. West is pretty good on smart meters. It's kind of on a state by state. I think there's about 180 million meters in the U.S. And 108 are smart. And so it's normally kind of like an all or nothing. You'll know if you're going through smart meters. Like New York is going through smart meter rollout right now. And there's other places that are like trying to announce it, and they'll go and fight it. Like Massachusetts, like is notorious for hating smart meters, and so Like, yeah. And so you'll go across that. But that's the first thing is just find someone because whatever situation you're in, there's ways to do this. I mean, again, if you're looking at a large enough building, you can do M&V, like measurement and verification, and you can understand what the building looks like. There's tack-ons you can put onto your meter to understand like the ebbs and flow of it on a much more granular even than 15-minute basis. So if you find the right person, they'll know what to do. It's just literally just hire a professional. If you don't feel great about it, look for a second opinion.
Sure.
I mean, you don't just set your mind on one car to buy. You go look at a few. And from the broker, you obviously don't want to be like messed around and be doing work for free. But like it's like the building owner needs to make sure that they're getting somebody reputable.
Sure. So if you were to look at kind of out into the future, let's assume every building, every house has a smart meter. You're getting the data every 15 minutes. What does that do for, the grid and what would you say would be like the perfect kind of power world in Texas with all of that data?
Good question. I would say, let's see. I mean, definitely having demand response, or there's this new kind of like hot distributed energy resource, and so kind of like where you become your own power plant essentially.
Okay.
Or like
the virtual power plant. Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like there's a company that's coming to Texas that does this on the home standpoint that I'm a big fan of, Ohm Connect. And so I met Matt, who's the co-founder. He does this out in California, has a ton of people. They just had like $100 million round with Google Sidewalk Labs, and it's an awesome company. And they aggregate houses together, and then have the houses kind of like act accordingly and go
Sure.
back to the grid. Because that was the big thing that people are asking is like we have a $9,000 price cap here, so I don't have a battery at my home, and in all honesty, don't have plans to have a battery at my home. The Tesla Powerwall 2 is phenomenal, but it's $8,000, 11 installed. It's a big pill to swallow. I just got my bill last month. Thank you to my energy supplier Ep.25 for a great rate. But it was $30, and like home's brand new, very efficient, etc. But like it was $30. Like that's a long time
low.
to pay back.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna take a long time to buy that Powerwall. But on the hindsight, if I can take that Powerwall and sell it at $9,000 when this is going, like, let's play.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was a trader for 12 years, which is educated gambling.
Yeah.
Like, I want to play.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would get behind. I mean, would you put on-premise gin here if you knew you could sell it back at $9
Absolutely.
and that you're normally paying 4 cents? Yeah. Like, this would be great. Like, hey, everybody, you're going home. Have a nice drive safe. We're turning this up, and you just become your own power plant. So I think that's where the grid needs to go. One of the issues, again, is as we're getting more and more people here, power lines are expensive, and we're having problem. As I drove over here, I saw no place to put a windmill. There was no place on 45 or the Beltway that is available for a windmill. And so we need to, instead of have this infrastructure, we need to just all act more accordingly. And electricity is cheap. It's at times free, and sometimes it's even negative. Mm-hmm. Electricity at the wrong time is expensive. So if we can mitigate that by saying, hey, this is great, having an automatic feature of I have an electric vehicle that automatically plugs in at 2 a.m. Like my phone now is smart enough to know, and it's not even one of the new iPhones, and it's like, you will be charged by 4:30 a.m.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, you do whatever you need to do. So if you had that, I think that having a more interactive grid, a smarter grid, is where we're headed, and that's what we need. And so that's why Amperon decided to focus on demand. Demand is what's changing. Every time a solar roof gets put on, we become more valuable. Every time someone buys that EV, more valuable. Batteries, more valuable. Setting up like a microgrid, more valuable. I mean, climate change, these tumultuous events, climate change gets a bad rap because global warming was the terrible marketing. When I froze my face off for 6 months in Chicago, there was nothing global warming about it.
Sure.
Now, more tumultuous events, I can totally get behind. We had the most active hurricane season in the history last time. Our meteorologist called 20. He was higher than the National Weather Service, everything. Way too low, but he was the highest of anyone. We literally went across. There were some 17s and some 19s, but he's like, it's 20. and I'm bullish on that number. Came in, we went to the Greek alphabet and almost ran out of that. And so, I mean, you're seeing more tumultuous weather, crazier weather. I mean, we do a lot of work with AEMO, the Australian Energy Market Operator. Australia is a really, really cool test ground for us because we get to learn what the future looks like. They have areas with 40% rooftop solar. I mean, 40.
Oh, wow.
You look at 5 houses, 2 has it. That is an insane number. I don't know anyone with solar roofs in Houston. And,
not many.
And so, that's a crazy number. And so because we work with the market operator and we actually help them manage the grid, with their operational forecast, we learn a ton of stuff. And so as their grid it's wild. It is crazy. They have the wildfires. Obviously, they have rolling blackouts all the time. They have a high price cap. It's energy only, but it's a great test ground for us. We've learned a lot of things there because I guess the terrain actually similarly resembles Texas. And so our models have gotten better by being out there, and then we'll be able to use the same machine learning model here in Texas from what we learned. So just as the grid's going, it's awesome to it's awesome to see that and see this new technology coming, but that's what we've got to stay on top of because again, we're only going to use more electricity. We're becoming more efficient, but everyone forgets this EV thing, and if the EV thing sticks, which it looks pretty much like it will, I was looking at the Model 3, and the range jumped from one year to the next by 50 miles, and we were looking at it. I wasn't going to buy one at 240. I got to get to Dallas. I'm not going to be sweating it out. It's just no. I'm not going to stop in the middle and have a nice lunch. And I mean, Buc-ee's doesn't have car charging stations yet. And so with that, but now the range is 370. Still got to act accordingly, make sure you're fully charged. So that's a little bit of my hesitancy. But it just keeps going up and up and up. And so,
absolutely.
And it's great and it's inexpensive. And the other thing too is you never got to get gas. It's just in your garage and you can plug it in. And if you get a good rate from your person, or as we head toward time of use, which Gritty was trying to do, but they didn't advertise it right. They didn't get users that were wise enough, or all of their users who were wise enough to understand the implications of every time you always make money. I was always short when I was a trader, and short, you're always right until you're wrong and you get your face ripped off. And so they would always joke long and wrong and short and fired.
Yeah.
And so with Gritty, you always make money until you don't. And unfortunately, they're out of business now. And so with that, with the time of use, though, your electricity provider, as they become smarter and as they use Amperon, they should they should incentivize you to charge your car at the right time.
Right.
They should incentivize you to run your battery. They should incentivize you to let them run your battery or something like that. And just as they continue to get smarter. And so that's where I see this going. But that's also, it's just really encouraging that this is kind of the new hot topic. And Houston's getting it too. Awesome space called Ion that's opening up.
We have equipment there.
Ion's phenomenal. And so that's going to be out soon, and just having that innovation hub is phenomenal. Greentown Labs. Greentown Labs is from Boston. We're in a sister incubator up in Brooklyn, and so with called Acre or Urban Future Lab, and it's a great place. They have great connections, and they help young companies, young startups just kind of continue to grow. Because from our standpoint, I mean, Amperon's doing great. We possibly may go out for another round of funding, but things are going extremely well. None of this would have been possible without Notation Capital believed in us at the very beginning, wrote us a check and started our round, and we got to raise $860,000 for an idea. And so that's one of the things that I'm passionate about being back here in Houston is bringing venture capital here. Because especially if we want to fix the grid, all the people who know how to work the grid live here. But the venture capital is on either coast, and so that's really a big issue. And so there's becoming a push. Greater Houston Partnership has done a big push in terms of getting VC here. But that's one thing that I really want to see Houston step up on, is have that, because VCs are made to lose money on most of their deals and then have one return it. And so Notation's had a bunch of great exits, and they've done a great job with their portfolio of companies, and we definitely plan to return them their
Right.
money. But they also have to take bets that are just not going to work out.
Right.
But you have to have that innovation. You have to have that bet that is that just to get us to the next level.
Yeah, and obviously Houston wants to stay the energy capital of the world, right? So it makes sense for that that innovation and that capital be here.
Yeah.
But I love that idea of having, again, that combination of the resiliency and the control, really, to be able to have the on-site generation or be able to be more in control of your energy. The option to sell back is great.
Yeah.
And obviously we love that. But, for me personally, or even for Cougar,
Yeah.
we support all of the buildings that are essential, right?
Oh,
Hospitals,
100%.
Government buildings, even HEBs, so we have to be operational all the time.
100%.
So during the polar vortex, our guys were up here, loading trucks, doing things. I mean, we had propane, luckily, so we could run our forklift, but we didn't have power. We didn't have water.
Yeah.
And so they were still out there humping it and getting stuff out the door. So, for us to have some vehicle to have that on-site generation.
Oh, for sure.
To be able to respond in those situations, but then for it not to sit idle the rest of the year and be able to either sell it back or to use it for the load shedding or whatever you were describing.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I mean, again, like you're in a very essential company. And so as these events happen, I mean, we just walked past all that machinery. You're like, this all came back from the other week. I was like, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, having that backup generation is great, and in the long run, you're gonna make money off of it.
Yep.
And so you're gonna get your money back. The efficiencies are great now, and then also on top of that, you've got like Department of Energy and other people like subsidizing stuff because they need you to do this, like just to help the grid. So no, absolutely, good stuff to look at.
Awesome. Well, man, dude, I've honestly learned a ton. It's awesome. Just wealth of knowledge over there on the energy markets, business in general. I think you shared a lot of good tips today. Any final thoughts or other words of wisdom that you have for us today?
I mean, I guess the big thing is that it's just one of these things that from an energy standpoint and from what we just dealt with, it was a very difficult time, but unfortunately it was a preventable time.
Sure.
And so I think it's just one of those things that just make the extra effort, just pick up the phone, make the call. Someone will come do this for you. You can, in this world, you can pay people to drive you places. You can pay people to drop your food off. Like, it's the same thing with energy. You can have someone come in and do all this for you. So just make that extra step. Understand that, all the backup generators are on like a 4-month delay right now because everybody, it's top of mind. But guess what? When we're in like the nice few months before it gets really hot, everyone's just going to go out of sight, out of mind.
Sure.
And so don't forget that. Just go make the extra effort. Get it done. You're going to make money on it. You're going to have a more resilient product. I mean, also just even from a marketing standpoint, if you can go out and say, hey, I'm this green, I'm this offsetting my emissions, things of that nature. What we're doing from a forecasting standpoint, we're helping people with more accurate forecasts. So one of the things we're doing this year is the Department of Energy website shows 1 megawatt hour saved is the equivalent of like 1,700 miles driven.
Oh, yeah.
And things like that.
The
and
EPA equivalency calculator.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you can literally go that as a building from a marketing. People are becoming more cognizant of this, and they're like, oh, well, Cougar USA does this, and I appreciate that they're making the effort so that next time that we have the potential for a grid failure, they have already done their part, and so they know that, and so this is a great company. And so I think that's the one thing that I would just say, kind of in closing, is just make that step, get it done. It's not hard. You're gonna make money on it. Look at the long-term picture, and there's a lot of great people who can just do it for you.
Absolutely. That's awesome advice, man. And Sean, really enjoyed the conversation today, and it's great to reconnect. And
yeah, absolutely.
Keep in touch with the Aggies that may have strayed a little while to Chicago and New York. But
I know.
Glad to see that you're back in Texas. And,
I know. Yeah, it's definitely been a while. So it is. It's good to be back. It's so good to be home. I learned so much in the 7 years I was gone, but just coming back here and just friends and family, and we haven't seen each other in quite a long time, but it was just like nothing skipped. And so it's definitely great to be home. Love Houston.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, sir, for joining us today. And also want to thank everyone for watching and listening to this episode of Building Value, and we hope to see you on the next one.